Is PlayStation crazy? So, if you haven't heard, PlayStation had not really a board of directors meeting or anything, but they basically like all four of like the big higher ups within PlayStation sat down on a couch, and it was pre-recorded. I guess in the past they've done live questions from stockholders and shareholders and all that stuff, and maybe from fans, but it's not your typical like, hey, we're going to announce a bunch of games and everything like that. This is more saying like, what is the company currently doing? What's their future, investment going to be going into? What are the current teams all doing type of thing? Like they literally had pictures showing off like, hey, Sucker Punch is, obviously finishing up on Ghost of Yotei. You have Santa Monica working on something. Obviously, they didn't say what. But they had all this stuff kind of going on, okay? But they were simply answering questions. Like one of the big ones that a lot of people online are freaking out about, but realistically makes sense, is that they're still being, they're still picking which games will go over to PC, which are staying exclusive. How long do they stay exclusive? Because shocker, exclusives sell consoles still. I mean, heck, Nintendo literally has been doing it for this long. PlayStation to some extent still does that. That's why you see things like their live service games go onto PC because that's a bigger marketplace right there, but they're single player for the most part. All go onto PlayStation first, and then eventually they go over to PC. And people are saying, well, if they released it at the same time as they do on PlayStation, then they'd get more sales. Yep, PC players still buy their first-party single-player games and everything, right? So it's like, why change that? If something down the road eventually changes that, then yeah, you're going to see them make this maybe a similar shift to what you see with Xbox or something like that. But until that day happens, guess what? They're going to keep doing exactly what they're doing. So again, regardless of what you see the minority of us say online and everything, because guess what? We're in the minority. We don't matter. But anyway, moving on though. One thing that I picked up on that I am obviously trying to wrap my brain around. Granted, I'm not the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company or anything like that. One thing that PlayStation is still saying right now is that the game Marathon is still set to release this fiscal year. Now, fiscal year is an important thing to note because that technically goes from now until March 31st, 2026. So technically we could see a delay for that game. But they haven't said that it's delayed, right? So you have to kind of, it's almost like reading between the lines, essentially saying like, okay, are they really going to just keep it until that September release date? And we'll get into that in a second as to why I think they possibly could. Or they will push it back the last second, like come August or something. We could potentially see something like that. But if you don't know, Marathon is being made by Bungie. Bungie, they made Halo and Destiny. And regardless of what you think of Destiny and everything, you can't deny that the shooting mechanics, the gunplay and everything in those games is top notch on console. You can make an argument, I think, for PC, but for console, they were the OGs. They're the ones who made that, just feel right back in those days, right? But shocker, right now, the OG Bungie team, yeah, they're pretty much all gone, okay? Not saying that the people working at Bungie are bad developers or anything, but OG Bungie is not current day Bungie, and that is extremely seeable with what we see through the higher ups and everything, and all the scandals we've seen and the layoffs and, taking out those cars for Pete and everything like that, your typical normal stuff. But Bungie has also been caught up in a few scandals, to say the least, when it comes to stolen assets, especially around art. And it hasn't happened once. It hasn't happened twice. It has happened 4 times. Some people even say 5 times, but I've only been able to find 4 personally. And the latest one right now is with their game Marathon. And a lot of those assets, and not the... I have to clarify this, by the way. It is not the style of art that they've stolen, essentially. That has actually been well documented that the main artist for this game, like he apparently he's been a big fan of this, and he's been changing, improving, and using inspirations from others for quite some time now. And so that's not the thing that's being stolen. It's the assets, the stuff that you see within the world, whether it's the text language for this particular world and everything. A lot of that stuff has been just ripped away from somebody else. And it's pretty well-known knowledge of all that stuff. I'm not exactly sure what the current artist is doing. I don't know if she's suing. Apparently, Bungie has reached out to her to potentially even hire her, but honestly, from what I've seen, why would you want to work for Bungie, especially when they've done that to you? But anyway, so regardless though, the game has not released. So luckily Bungie hasn't released it yet, because if they did, they would be in a bigger world of hurt essentially. But what they need to do now is they need to basically be going back into the game. So all their maps, all their weapons, anything that uses those assets, they've got to remove those because they don't have permission to use those. And so everyone's just sitting here going like, okay, this means you have to, at the minimum, delay the game. And as of right now, PlayStation is saying, nope, it's still on track.
You serious?
Even though supposedly they have canceled their marketing, they were supposed to have some trailers, I guess, in this month of June to talk about pre-orders and everything, and that there's going to be like this open beta they were going to announce. That's all been scrapped. I mean, heck, they even had this like really terrible live stream that they were going to be showing off like new gameplay and everything, and they couldn't because of the assets and everything. So the current tinfoil hat, put your tinfoil hats on right now. The current tinfoil hat theory is one of two things. Either A, Sony / PlayStation is this delusional and they really think Marathon is going to be this big thing, which apparently they were saying in this little like heads of Sony / PlayStation talking to investors and everything. They still think it can do really well. Keep in mind, this is also the same people who thought that Concord was going to be a Star Wars level thing and just rake in money and everything. Looking at you, Herman. The other tinfoil hat, though, is that Sony is simply letting this go to die, because apparently if this does not do well or it doesn't hit particular revenue goals and everything, then they by contract are allowed to basically get rid of all the executives, which personally I'm all for. If this happens to be real, I am all for that. PlayStation, definitely do that. So those are the two current, theories going around right now. So as always though, I am joined by Lemon, who's been here with us. And now Lemon, I have to know, what are your personal thoughts on all this? Do you think that PlayStation would just let this game to go out to die so that they could get rid of the executives, absorb parts of Bungie, kick the rest of them out, and basically just be able to keep some of that talent? Do you think they are that delusional that Marathon is going to do super well? Because as we know, live service games, you got to put a lot of money going in after they've released, not just simply when you make them, but after release, then the money can start flowing through. Even games like Fortnite, as big as they are, they did not start out raking in billions of dollars right from the get-go.
Yes, that's my thought. Well, I think a lot of things are happening. I think the hubris of Sony right now is at the levels of Ken Kutaragi in the PS3 era, dropping the $600 console with Ridge Racer and Giant Enemy Crab. For all the people old enough to remember all those memes, I kind of expect Marathon to get delayed come, I don't know, October, November. I mean, we looked at GTA 6. It was going to come out this year, firm. Everyone's saying that for a majority of this year. Then 2K came out. It's like, yeah, sorry, guys. It's next year. So, and that was what, like a month or two ago?
About a month or two ago,
yeah. It's not unusual to kind of wait until the last minute. And I fully expect something as fluid as Marathon is to do exactly that. If Sony or Bungie really wants to keep their money at this. At the same time, Sony, I mean, they knew going in, within a month earlier that this was not good. Like the response online, again, as you mentioned earlier, echo chamber, people online are not indicative of the general public. At least the feedback they had gotten from Concord was pretty negative. I mean, I don't think there was anyone came away from that beta thinking, man, this game's amazing. It's so good. I can't wait to play the full game. No, it was pretty ho-hum. And so Sony knew that they could have. They had like a month. They could have said, all right, this game ain't it yet. It needs more time in the oven. So it would also not shock me if Sony put it out to die. To one, stop, to stop the hemorrhaging, stop the money pit. And then the other one is just, as you mentioned earlier, to maybe get rid of executives. I mean, they have no qualms firing people with golden parachutes. Like, I don't think they're necessary. If they really want to get rid of Bungie execs, they would just shit can them.
Well, I guess it depends on what's in any particular contract, though. Is there, because maybe Bungie sues them if they just let them go before the game releases or anything, right? Because that's, again, all rumors, speculation, stuff like that, because what we've heard from some reporting is that in order for Marathon, the game, to be successful, I guess, I don't know if that's within the Bungie executive eyes or PlayStation/Sony's eyes, they have to hit like the top 5 best games or something like that of the year. And that's not happening. I can tell you that right now. I'm pretty confident in guessing that, okay? You know, by the time this game releases and everything, as long as it releases on time, then this allows those executives stocks, I think, to vest, if I remember correctly. And so, but they have to hit a certain goal or something like that. Again, we don't know, obviously, details or anything when it comes to the actual contracts that they've made with Sony and Bungie and all that stuff. Obviously, we'll never know that stuff. But if this doesn't go the way they wanted to, then Sony can just be like, psh, we gave you time and money. You did jack. Get out, essentially, right? And we don't have to pay you shit. And then I guess if they try to sue them, then they're going to be like, no, we've got receipts right here, essentially.
No, they got golden parachutes. They'll never have to work a day in their life again.
Oh, yeah, no, easily. Yeah.
At the end of the day, though, I mean, it's just cost of business. I mean, I fully expect, even if Marathon has to get the plug pulled 3 days after it comes out, like, it's not really it's gonna hurt the bottom line at Sony. This isn't Microsoft. This isn't Amazon. This isn't Apple. Sony can't be doing this shit much longer to be, dumping these games, huge budget games out like that. But at the same time, I would have to imagine at this point they're just gonna cut their losses on Bungie. I mean, that was whatever money Destiny's pulling in still.
It's not raking in nearly what they thought it was or what Bungie told them it should be pulling in. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Exactly.
Bungie basically lied to them, essentially. So, not saying I'm defending poor, hopeless little PlayStation or anything like that. They're still, again, billion-dollar company and everything, but they basically got played. They got played.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. I mean, and at the end of the day, with what the original reason, the original article where this whole conversation came from, I just think it's just talk is cheap. I think they're just going to let it ride. If it comes out and makes a little bit of money, awesome. If it doesn't, they'll just mark it down as losses and move on. I can't imagine they're dumping a huge amount more money in Marathon. So
no, I can. But supposedly they're still doing things or dumping money into games like Fair Games and everything, which is supposed to be some kind of other steal from the rich extraction shooter, which is falling into the same kind of category as
You mean Jade Raymond, the studio from Jade Raymond who just recently quit?
Yeah. That studio she founded and then she quit or was maybe asked to leave. We don't really know anything like that. Yeah. That game is still that has not been canceled, right? PlayStation has, ever since Jim Ryan left and the new CEOs came in and Hiroki Totoki took over and everything like that. He's the guy at the very top, essentially. And then you obviously have the others like Herman and everything. But the guy, Hiroki Totoki, he is at least well known over here in the business side. He has no problem just canceling stuff, laying things, all that kind of stuff, right? Yet for some reason, he will not cancel that. He canceled the God of War online service game. He canceled all this other stuff, right? But he will not cancel that for some reason. I'm just like, dude, just come on. The axe is like 3/4 of the way through all this live service BS stuff. Get it through the entire way.
So I have a mental kind of frustration at the place I work. They're non-technical people making technical decisions. The problem is people see live service, they see Fortnite, they see Apex Legends making buku bucks. This is where this all comes from. This is where this whole live service gold rush comes from. At the end of the day, we are 10 years in on this whole live service gold rush, and we're still dealing with the Fortnite, Apex Legends, and
Call of Duty,
some other stragglers. I mean, I'm sure, but Call of Duty was already big before
Warzone.
Oh god, what's the Warzone? I would say Warframe. It's a whole different game. Warzone. I mean, but at the end of the day, we're still playing. These games are still the original ones. There has not been a major live service game since probably Apex Legends that really popped off. I mean, Valorant's around, but
Valorant's definitely a lot more hardcore, especially with the type of game that it is, essentially. I mean, I know it does well. It rakes in money.
It's more like a CSGO kind of game.
Right. Yeah. It still rakes in money, but yeah, like you said,
it's not. No one's broken in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one's broken in. And at this point, it's a little frustrating that lay people such as us can see that and that these execs don't. But again, these are, I would imagine, non-technical people making technical decisions.
Yeah, I mean, but also isn't it technically also like maybe some of the execs do, but yeah, I'm not really trying to defend it because a lot of them are dumbasses. But part of it also is just you have to unfortunately bend the knee to your investors and everything because
you have to bend the knee to the board. I get that, but at the same time, the board also needs to have the graph go green. Yeah. It has to always go green. Yeah. And it hasn't been going green for these people chasing this gold rush. Yeah. So eventually heads are going to have to roll.
Right, exactly. So, or again, like things like their margins are not as big as, what is it? I think it's 20% is what they want. And Sony as of right now is only like 6 or 5 or something like that. So that's why, again, we've seen things like
you can keep chasing that dream, but like eventually the money brand's got to stop.
Exactly. Oh yeah,
you can't do this. I
definitely
Sony
get that.
Does not have that coffers.
Yeah,
Microsoft can play that dumb game. Amazon can play that dumb game. Sony cannot.
Yeah,
they have got to be getting to the end of that.